And yes, we are live. I'm here with my new friend, Bob. How are you doing, Bob?
Hi, David.
Very nice to meet you.
I'm not bad for an old fella.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to meet another Aussie. I love the Australian people, and I just had an Aussie guest the other day, actually.
Okay.
I don't know if you know him. Maybe maybe you know him. I doubt it.
Well,
But
well, yeah, there's only about 25 million Australians. I'm sure to know him.
you're spread out over it's a pretty big continent, right?
About the same as the United States, continental United States.
Wow. Wow, it's huge.
Western Australia is 3 times the size of Texas.
Wow. Amazing. And you're near Melbourne, I believe, right? Is that what you said?
Well, no, I live in Healesville, which is a little country town,
Okay.
and 50 miles to the west is our outlying suburb, Melbourne. And because of the air pollution there, we have beautiful sunsets.
Ah, I see. Okay.
which illustrates one of the aspects of positive psychology. Everything has benefits.
The silver lining, yes.
There's good in everything.
Absolutely. So I want to get your story because I purposely don't find out too much about my guests beforehand because I want to discover with the audience. So talk us through the whole journey. Where were you born and raised? What was the family life like? Was there any faith or philosophy or religion in the home? And what sort of twists and turns on your personal voyage to discover truth and God? And where are you today? Just paint the whole picture for us.
Well, as it happens, that's what I plan to do. What a coincidence. You see, I'm a storyteller.
Ah.
Well, a logical place to start is birth. It was during the Second World War in Budapest, Hungary, when the bombs were falling. And a shot-down aeroplane took out the 2 top stories of the hospital while my mum was squeezing me out. And so she got a nurse to sew her up. No anesthetics or painkillers. That was for the seriously wounded. Then she got another patient to help her to dress, and she walked out of the hospital. She wasn't going to have it collapse on top of her. And then she walked for 3 hours through deep snow, carrying me home. And then when I was a toddler, we were invited to be guests of Adolf Hitler in the ghetto. And she used to sneak out, pushing me in my pram, took the yellow star off her chest. And I had, I was going to say blue eye and blonde hair. And so she took off my bonnet to show my blonde hair, very airy, you see. And then she traded things like jewelry and other valuables for food, brought it back to the ghetto, traded with the others, and in this way kept the whole crowd of people alive. And later on, she did quite a number of impossible things. And so of my books, her biography is the one that won the most number of awards. This book has won 4 awards. It was also the hardest to write. I wrote it when she was dying in the year 2000. I went and visited, and then brought home a suitcase full of documents and whatnot and pictures. Then it took me 2 years before I could even look at them. Mm-hmm. Then I wrote it in 3 months. Anyway, in school in Hungary, very anti-Semitic society, one of my regular experiences, fun for everybody was this group of kids surrounding me and saying, Jews killed Jesus. Stupid shit-faced Jew. Why did you kill Jesus? So the word Jesus became, I was almost phobic to it. For a long time, Christianity meant abuse. Anyway, fast forward to 24 years of age, and this girl was silly enough to want to marry me. and she's a Christian. By the way, I'm no good at getting married. I've only done it once. And so I had to have an interview with a minister who was Mr. Cut in the Dutch Presbyterian Church in Sydney. And because he wanted to know whether he'd be willing to have me in his church. So instead of a half-hour interview, we spent all afternoon talking. And this good man agreed to remove 2 words from the marriage service. One was obey. No way was I going to get a woman to obey me, and for real equality. And the other one was Jesus. He actually modified the service to remove the word Jesus. And he also told me that my value system is exactly Buddhist.
Oh.
And so I knew nothing about Buddhism, went to the university library and read up on it. And I found my beliefs there, all set out in detail.
Turns out the Buddhist killed Jesus. The Buddhist killed Jesus, right? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Central to Buddhism. Oh, is it possible for me to share the screen?
Yeah, there should be some. I've never done it, but there should be something on the bottom of your screen here. It says present now. It's between the smiley face and the waving hand. You'll see a square with an arrow. Click on that and then try. Okay?
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Present now. Try
hang
it.
on.
I've never used it.
Well, no, sorry.
You could figure it out.
I can't do it because I can later on. But what I wanted to show you is another tab of the same browser. I wanted to show you the Buddhist metta prayer. What I'll do is I'll read it instead.
Okay.
Metta is loving kindness. And it's central to Buddhism. And as an act of loving kindness, as an act of metta, I decided not to sue the Buddha for plagiarism there and then. But anyway, what is metta? May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings awaken to the light of their true nature. May all beings be free. So I just read it, but it's better if you feel it. Anyway, my belief, my value system from childhood really, is above all do no harm. And you can expand that. Above all do no harm, except to prevent a greater harm. So for example, self-defense is allowed. Second point is when you can do good. When you can't do good, change the situation until you can. And that's sort of what I do my best to live by. You don't have to be perfect. Anyway, about the word Jesus, we have, well, the lady died of cancer, but we had a long-term married couple who are both ministers of religion in the Uniting Church. Uniting Church is a combination of Presbyterian and Methodist and Baptist, I think, in Australia. And they used to run neighboring parishes. Anyway, he is a noted scholar in comparative religion. He's written a textbook about it. And when I was about 30, one day we were having a discussion, and I mentioned to him that Dagovinda, the peacemaker from your part of the world, you know about him?
No.
Dagovinda, the peacemaker of the Iroquois Confederation. Wonderful man. Anyway, legends about him state that he was a virgin birth, and he walked on water, and he even flew in a flying canoe. So I said to Ian, well, if you don't believe this about Dagovinda, do you believe it about Jesus? And he said, no, I don't believe in the miracles. I said, then you're not a Christian. How if you don't believe in the miracles and in the resurrection and the virgin birth, how can you be a Christian? He said, I follow the message. And for that reason, Bob, you're a Christian too. And I said, no, I'm not. So he was a minister of religion who had almost identical belief system to me. And from that word on, the word Jesus was all right. I am a follower of Jesus and satisfied to be. By the same token, your boss, Pope Francis, I think is an enlightened spirit. Which means that he needn't come back, needn't reincarnate.
I see Decanawida, Iroquois leader between 1570 and 1600, born a Huron, who is said to have persuaded Hiawatha to advance peace, civil authority, righteousness, and the great law. Is that the same person?
Yep.
Nice. I'm very interested to learn more.
I'll read.
Yeah.
Well worth.
There's some books, some good books I can read about him.
Oh, I basically just used the internet.
Okay.
Way back, before there was an internet. But look, by the time I was 17, I'd read every book in the school library and every book in the municipal library. So,
wow. So,
yes, the very unkind nickname for me was the absent-minded professor, because I knew about everything and I could do nothing. I was the most impractical person on this planet.
Wow. What, if you don't mind my asking, you said your wife, she passed away from cancer, is that correct?
No, not my wife, Ian's wife.
Oh, okay, so your wife's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Good. And what's her story? Is she influenced by your spirituality to adopt some?
Our connection goes back at least 4 lives.
Wow.
Once upon a time, I was an Irish shepherd boy on an island off Ireland.
Okay.
And I met her the first time then. And Vikings took her and killed me when I was trying to defend her.
Okay.
Then I came back as an Irish peasant boy in 1780, called Dermot, and took part in the Irish Rebellion and got sent to Australia for the term of my natural life as a convict. And there but still in Ireland, when she was 16, the war broke out, trying to kick the English out. And so she was always the boss. She decided we better have a child because I could die in the war. Now, I survived, but she died. And that made me very bitter in that life. And so when I was a convict in Australia, I died doing a terrible crime and had to pay restitution. So, you know what a squatter is?
Yeah.
In Australian history, the squatters were the aristocracy. They owned the land. Anyway, I chose the next life as the squatter's wife who would be raped, and I got it with bells on. Married a man who raped me every day of our married life until he couldn't anymore. And anyway, all this is set out here.
Ascending spiral.
Which is my autobiography.
Okay.
Except it's fictionalized, and it's fictionalized for 2 reasons. One is I don't want to be sued, so it's fiction to protect the guilty. There are 2 millionaires alive today, and I said nasty, and their father did some nasty things. So, not wanting to get them too upset, I've described things. But the second reason is a wonderful psychological tool. In acceptance and commitment therapy, which is actually Buddhism-based, mindfulness-based therapy, there is a tool called the film script. So you don't like the life you live. You don't like the person you are. Okay, write a film script, which first step is characterization. You create a character who has your exact physical appearance and your past history. Every important event in your life is faced by your hero, but this person handles them the way you wish you had. So Pip, the hero in my book, does all the things right that I did wrong. And then, of course, what you do is you step into the film script, and you, from this day on, you act as if you were that hero to the best of your ability. Wow. So that's why it's fictionalized. Anyway, it's done very well. It's gone through 4 printings, and so it's a combination of science fiction, historical fiction, because it reports past lives, and also after I stopped being Dermot, and I came back as Amelia, who was the squatter's wife, but when she died, she didn't want to have anything to do with male and female because it causes so much pain, and love causes so much pain. So she wanted to live a life with no male or female, and where everybody has unconditional love for everybody else. And that wasn't possible on Earth. So my immediate past life was as an intelligent walking plant on a different planet, somewhere else in the universe. And even today that affects me. For example, I found the human body to be absolutely bizarre. Just think about how you walk. You're balanced. You lean forward until you're about to lose your balance. You pick up a foot, and before you fall, you put that foot down. It's ridiculous. Yeah. You watch walking in slow motion. So I remember at university, I was watching people walking and laughing about it. And this girl said, "What's so funny?" And I explained. And I said, "Well, how many legs do you think we should have?" And I said, "Well, 8 sounds pretty stable." Because as a walking plant, I had 8 legs. But I didn't know it at the time. I found out about my past lives in 2007, which was a long time ago.
What's the ultimate end game? Are we all one? We're all the mind of Buddha, just exploring and experiencing separation, the illusion of separation, just for the fun of it. So we all go back to the one.
There is a wonderful analogy that Buddhists use. There is an apparent paradox. There is no separation. All is one. Separation is an illusion. And also this entire material universe is an illusion. So there is nothing to reincarnate and nothing to reincarnate into. And at the same time, the point of karma means seed. When you do something, it's a seed for the future. The future grows out of what you do now. So when you, for argument's sake, you go out of your studio and you kick a dog. I'm not saying you would do a thing like that, but if you did, when you've died, a superior spirit who for you may be an angel. My experience is a glowing presence, immensely beautiful, parent figure, neither mother nor father, but I think of it as a mother. Can't describe anything physically except the complete acceptance, no judgment. I think Christianity and Islam are wrong in making God the judge. No, God gets you to judge. It's full acceptance, and my experience is I was asked to judge myself and then choose a future life in which I can learn the lessons I have chosen for myself. So anyway, how can you reconcile this contradiction? Think of the sea, the endless ocean. Wind blows over it and the wave arises. All right? That wave is not separate. It's a part of the sea. It's a deformation on the surface of the sea. But you can point to it and say, that wave. It has force. It can overturn a ship. It can knock over a house if it comes in far enough, you know? It's real. But it is not separate. If you remove that bit of water from the sea, it is now separate, but it's no longer the wave. So you can have it both ways. So yes, all is one.
There is no danger, because in my religion, hell is real and you can't get out, and it's a miserable place, to put it mildly. And the Jews and the Muslims agree in the mainline traditions of those two monotheistic religions. But you don't have that. You only have heaven. You only have God and the playfulness of God. That's all you have.
No,
there's no consequence.
No, first, Judaism does not have a hell. I've studied up on the subject. Look, if you put 6 Jews in a room, you get 12 opinions. But by and large, the Talmud and the Torah don't mention what happens after death. And in fact, I forget his name, there is a Jewish scholar who has shown quite convincingly that Jesus was a reincarnation of King David. There are passages in the Torah and in the Gospels that indicate that.
Yeah, but back to my point of there's no hell in your Buddhism. I mean, it's just there's absolutely no real danger. There's the illusion of danger. There's the theater of danger, but there's no real danger. There's nothing. There's no consequence. There's no negative consequence where you can get stuck.
Oh, yes, there are consequences. I asked, as Amelia, for a life where I can't feel the pain of love. The only way to do that is to cut off emotion, which is why, you need to be so traumatized. War infant syndrome, right? If you're a little newborn baby, possibly even before birth, if the adults around you are constantly terrorized, the only way you can protect yourself is to cut off emotion. So this is why I had to choose to be born into a traumatized infancy. So I was born a Jew in Hitler's world while the bombs were falling. If one of those bombs had hit me or I died early for some other reason, I may have had to come back to finish that unfinished business as, say, a Palestinian refugee or an Indian ethnically in Fiji, or an Australian Aboriginal kid in a country town, someone who's traumatized by circumstances from more or less from birth. That was my chosen hell.
Yeah.
And in 2007, when I was a very senior psychologist myself, I decided I was ready to deal with the traumas of my infancy. And I found someone I could work with. This was an older lady. And what we did was I moved in with her for 4 days. So that was 4 days and nights of continuous therapy. And not only did she help me to process this childhood trauma, when I was under hypnosis with her was the first time I could actually cry physical tears for my mother's death.
Oh.
And I've been able to experience joy and love and genuine emotions since then. But she also, one of the things she said was, go back to where you need to go. Completely non-directive, it has to be. And I felt myself to be in a strange body. I had breasts, small but distended with milk, and my back felt strange. And I knew I had blonde hair hanging down my back. And if I was an artist, I could draw the face. And I was wearing a corset which made breathing difficult. And it was terribly hot. And I was dreading something that was coming. That was the first sight I got. Completely shook me. And then I said, look, I'm a skeptic. I don't believe this. I've got a good imagination. Maybe I invented it. And she said, if I asked you to invent something, would you have invented this? And that shook my skepticism. Besides which, after that, the recalls just kept, it was a machine gun of recalls. And then it took me about 2 years of packing it all together. And that's much of this book.
Have you met other people that have had similar experiences or beliefs, what you believe in terms of reincarnation and all that sort of stuff?
Well, I've researched it. I am a scientist, which means I don't believe anything, but I go with the evidence. And the evidence is actually remarkably compelling. If you want to read the best books on it, Jim Tucker has 2. Life Before Life is one of them. And I forgot offhand, I could look it up. But if you look up Jim Tucker, Life Before Life, you'll find him.
But I mean, in your real life, in your day-to-day life, like your family and friends, are there many of you?
I've used past life hypnotic regression with many other clients. Many of my clients. And basically, you are allowed by your larger self as much knowledge about your past lives as will help you in your current task. Some people simply cannot get any. And some people have lots and lots and lots. I was given 4. And then on an online venue, I exchanged past life hypnotic regression with a young woman in Scotland. And she recovered several past lives. And I got one, which was my first life on Earth. And by then I was already quite an old soul. But when I was required to come to Earth to pay restitution for a terrible crime, I destroyed an entire planet of sentient beings. which is not a good idea. And so my restitution was to choose to return to be a sentient being on a planet. And my first life, what I got out of it, I'm a boy of maybe 10, sitting on a ledge about this wide with a limestone wall behind me and my feet casually dangling over the edge. And below me is this endless vista of forested mountains. And this is somewhere in Europe, which is now all citizen farmland. But this was, I don't know, 12,000 years ago. And I don't even know if I was Homo stupidens or Neanderthal, which is actually not a separate species, but our cousins, because we interbred. I think it's ridiculous to call them a separate species. You have some Neanderthal genes in you, and so do I.
Yeah, just so you know, I don't believe in evolution. I'm a creationist. I believe the whole universe, has a beginning about 7,000 years ago, and there's a beginning to time, an end to time, and they're basically two outcomes for any human. I'm a unique human being. I'm not going to get reincarnated. I've never lived past lives. I'm created for this, for this one life, and then after this life, it's either heaven or hell, ultimately. So that's my Christian perspective. I'm sure you've bumped into people who believe what I believe. Maybe not too many that don't believe in evolution, that believe in creationism, but Christianity is pretty common today. Like you said about the Jews, you get 6 Jews together, you get 12 opinions. Same thing with Christians. Like my hobby is interviewing people. A lot of them are Christians, and they all disagree with each other and with me about all kinds of stuff, important stuff. So we all have the the creativity, the imagination, and our own will and desires, and we can cobble together, our own specific set of beliefs, even though we can call ourselves Christian. So it's the same thing probably with you and, the Jews, the Buddhists, and everyone in between. I've met a lot of Jews who have Buddhist leanings, actually, and I've interviewed a few on my podcast. It's not that uncommon. So it's interesting the way people come up with, I don't know if it's psychological or if it's spiritual or what it is, but, everyone's unique. And if people have the time to think about ultimate reality, they'll come up with something. They'll come up with a story. Some people, though, sadly, are just nose to the grindstone. Money, power, like just the immediate pleasures of the world, food, sex, and they don't really put much thought into what's happening. Why am I here? Where do I come from? Who am I? What am I? What is God? And these sorts of things. Some people don't put too much investment into that kind of questioning, which I think is important. So yeah, it's just interesting meeting different people.
Anyway, I've got several responses to what you said. First is maybe the last point. Only 2 things matter in life: what you take with you when you die, and what you leave behind in the hearts of others. Everything else is monopoly money. What you can take with you: love, tolerance, all the good things, or hate, resentment, discrimination, same with what you leave behind in the hearts of others. So I think in that we agree. Now, as for evolution, heaven and hell and all that, as I said, I'm a scientist. I don't believe in anything. I go with the evidence. On some things, the evidence is quite strong, and if you study it, you cannot ignore it. In other things, it's only suggestive. What actually happens after death? There is some very interesting evidence. One is past life recalls. There are quite a number of people who have been able to make testable claims. The most impressive is one of Jim Tucker's studies. You remember I mentioned him?
Yeah.
This was a boy in India. Now, one of the Indian ethnic groups has a belief, superstition if you like, that when a beloved person dies, you paint a red dot on the body somewhere, and then you look for a red birthmark of the same shape on any newborn babies. And when that person comes back, the baby will have a birthmark there. Anyway, there was this boy who had a birthmark on his back. And in that culture, and he kept, when he was asked about it, he said, oh, so-and-so painted it there. And the parents, the family, didn't know anybody by that name. But when the American team came in, they used public records to find an old woman in the same culture, but this physically distant in a far distant village with that name. And they interviewed her and showed her a picture of the boy. And she said, oh, yes, I painted that dot on my son, whose name was such and such, when he died. Now, when she painted the dot, the dead person was dead. The boy was not born until many years later. The spirit, the part of the person that doesn't die, observed it. That's my only possible explanation. Jim Tucker, because of all the skepticism, and his team, and before that Ian Stevenson, are absolutely extraordinarily careful with documenting everything. There can have been no cheating, no lies. But there are thousands of such instances. Another remarkable one was a Turkish boy who absolutely went to pieces at any loud bangs, to the point of dirtying his pants, I think. He was only a young kid. And he had a deformation on his face that looked remarkably like a gunshot wound. He was born with it. And he had, I can't remember the details, dreams or recalls of being a truck driver. And enough details were extracted that they found a truck driver 50 years before who was shot in exactly that place and killed by bandits. Now, he was a Muslim, and in Islam, reincarnation is blasphemy. Nevertheless, he was forced to disbelief. He knew he was reincarnated because he could remember it.
Yeah. In my religion, just so you know, in my religion, Satan cannot control our intellect and our will, but he can control our imagination and our feelings. So that's why I'm very cautious and skeptical about everything you're saying, because it's all based on imagery and imagination. And so Satan, he's not God, but he's very intelligent, and he has been permitted by God to fool us. And so that's why I'm very skeptical, to put it mildly, because I'm very firmly committed to Christianity. You know what I mean? Right. So I respectfully disagree with much of what you're suggesting. Although I do respect you, and I'm sure your intentions are good. But it's all a bit too much for me as a Christian. Even though I was deep in the New Age before, I was a Satanist before. I don't know if you know this, but I was actually a Satanist and an atheist. And so I've gone down a lot of garden paths. I was many things over the course of 25 years as an adult. I was atheist and became a Satanist and deep in the New Age. So I've gone down some garden paths. That's another reason why I'm a little bit skeptical of some of the stuff that you're telling me.
Well, I absolutely respect your belief, your right to believe whatever you wish, however wrong it may be.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course. And I admit, I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Look,
I could be
I
wrong.
can actually tell you about who Satan is.
Yeah.
My current work, I'm trying to flock to agents. It's not published yet.
Okay.
Is about a young kid in the Australian outback called Bill, who was bred and selected by some aliens here to save us from extinction. And so they call him the Doom Healer. And they train him up. And unknown to them, we're racing toward extinction because 10,000 years ago, an invader from a different universe came to ours. And his task is to destroy our universe. There is one of his kind in every one of our galaxies. And he chose, but he is the leader of them all. And he has invented the myth of Satan. And his first opponent, he first came to New Guinea. And there he started, and we know that because agriculture probably started in New Guinea. And he started agriculture and murder. People couldn't even conceive of killing each other until he came. And his first opponent was Derrit, and he casually murdered him. But before he died of the torture, Derrit said, "I will return and oppose you always." And he's come back life after life after life. And one of those lives was as Confucius. One of his lives was as Socrates. One of his lives was as King David and the Buddha and as Jesus. And now, when the prophesied final battle between the two of them is to take place, he is my friend Bill.
Ah. I've got a couple of questions from the live chat. My friend Daniel Drazinovich is here. Nice to see you, Daniel, as always. He's asking two questions. Does Buddhism seek refuge in non-being? Because in Christianity, we seek refuge in being. God is ultimate being. But it seems like with the illusion of our being here, it's like we're taking refuge in non-being. And then the second question is, how do Buddhists understand suffering? So those are two difficult questions for you.
Suffering is central to Buddhism. The Four Noble Truths are, all life is suffering. To expand a little bit, bad things are suffering. If you go to physical pain, it hurts. But good things, when you have attachment to a good thing, then the suffering is that it will end. Change is the only constant. So addictions occur because of good things. You take some meth or cocaine or whatever, and you feel great. Then you get the withdrawal effect, which is pew, you plummet. And that's why you get addicted. Or gambling. And the reason for suffering, second noble truth, is attachment. So the solution is non-attachment. And the path to non-attachment is the Eightfold Path, which is then it gets difficult. But actually, it's really simply equanimity is non-attachment. It doesn't mean not caring. For example, everybody will die. Anybody who the only fatal disease is conception. Huh? Some people die before they're born, others die 120 years later. That doesn't matter. It's how well you live, not how long. Some people die one at a time, and the person I dearly love at the moment has terminal cancer. And sometimes people die by the hundreds. Say a village gets knocked down by a landslide, and sometimes by the thousands, as in these terrible wars. And with climate change, it'll be millions. That doesn't matter. How many at a time doesn't matter. Even suffering is something we can put behind us. When I was a little boy, I slipped over and got some gravel rash, and I thought the world was ending. Since then, I've had far worse pain, which I could accept using equanimity. So my job is to do the best I can, to right wrongs, to fight for justice, to fight for survival. I'm a professional grandfather. The job specification is to work for a tomorrow for today's youngsters and a tomorrow worth living in, which means to delay or unbelievably possible, if possible, reverse the fact that we're in the sixth extinction event, and it's due to things like poison planet, all the poisons we're putting into the environment, and the climate catastrophe, and the plastics choking everything, and the terrible inequalities, 1% owning more than, if wealth was equitably shared, there'd be no hardship on earth. So my job is to do my best about these things, but accept what is equanimity, peace in my heart.
What about being and non-being?
So that's central to Buddhism. Anyway, all right, the other part, Buddhism is not a religion. Some versions of the Chinese, Japanese, Tibetan versions have made it into a religion, but the original, actually, Buddha says nothing about any superior being. Right? So it is perfectly compatible. You can be an atheist and be a Buddhist. You can be a Jew, as you said, or a Christian, or a Hindu, or an agnostic, and be a Buddhist. The only conflict is in Islam, because Islam explicitly rules out reincarnation. There are many versions of Christianity that accept reincarnation. So,
but what about being and non-being? Because I'm just wondering what you think about non-being, because we are sort of an illusion. It's the illusion of being. It's not real being. It's like the dream of Buddha.
Well, as I said, I form a tentative model of reality and what evidence I have available to me. And this is that the universe is a live being. Think of it as an intelligent flower. And I think our universe is quite a young person. It's still growing. And it needs the metaphorical equivalent of brain cells, which are self-aware beings able to do self-reflection and able to exercise morality. And the reason for the material universe is a school for souls. So we are here to learn lessons. So I think of myself as an ongoing spiritual being who has chosen to put part of itself into a body for now. And that body for now is Bob Rich, and I'm here to learn certain lessons. And I have chosen this life to learn those lessons. And yes, it is an illusion, but it's an illusion like that wave.
The one reality is still one.
Mm.
There's a lot of what they call interreligious dialogue. You might object to that term, but between the Catholic Church and the Buddhists, and there's been some activity recently, and I'm interested to look into what sort of agreement there is, what sort of disagreement there is. Not that there's a unified front on the Buddhist side. I mean, the Catholics, we have, for example, we have the well-established teachings of the Church we call dogmas, and we cannot doubt them. There are other things that are up for grabs, and we can have opinions that vary with our neighbor. But with Buddhism, I don't know if you have something similar to what we have in the Catholic Church, where there's one leader. I don't know if the Dalai Lama is accepted universally or not.
Well, no, the Dalai Lama leads one particular thought stream.
Okay.
There are others, and it doesn't matter. Look, all the great religions have the same essence and great philosophies. I mean, Immanuel Kant was not a religious leader, he was a philosopher. And his message, Dagovinda, whom we've mentioned, Jesus, the Buddha, Confucius, all of if you analyze the Hindu beliefs, Zoroaster, the Mayan, decoded Mayan writings, they all carry the same message. All the rest is cultural imposition. I mean, Muhammad wrote for his culture. Well, no, he didn't try it. He revealed his teachings, because he was illiterate, to his culture, which was a savage, warlike set of times. But his message, I mean, there's a lot of anti-Islam feeling and a lot of prejudice against Muslims. But in fact, his message is the same. First, he accepted Jesus as one of God's three messengers, being Moses, Jesus, and himself. There are many other prophets, but they're the three messengers in Islam. So the entirety of Jesus' teachings is accepted by Islam. Love thy neighbor, do unto others, etc. And I've got a quote I can read out for you. This is from one of the most important chapters in the Quran. Do not be people without minds of your own, saying that if others treat you well, you will treat them well. And if they do you wrong, you will do wrong to them. Instead, accustom yourself to do good if people do good, and not to do wrong, even if they do evil. So,
yeah, that's beautiful.
And there is a respected historian called Juan Cole, Juan Cole, Cole, who is an Islamic scholar, and he has listed 10 ways after the Boston Marathon bombing. You may remember that. He published an article which is even more relevant today about how the Quran forbids terrorism, and he cites 10 different passages. So, like Christians can use the Bible to justify hate, I mean, the Crusades were a crime. the Inquisition was a crime. They were justified on the basis of the teachings of the prophet of love. There are people who have killed medical practitioners because they performed abortions. Because why did you do it? Because I'm a Christian. I can't conceive that. How can you murder someone as a supposed act of right to life? This is inconceivable cognitive dissonance to me.
Yeah. We're not supposed to kill.
So, abortion, I know your attitude to it. My personal attitude is there's a certain stage before which the fetus is a receptacle which is not yet conscious, and then the spirit moves into it. And exactly where that is, I don't know. But early abortions are justified. And again, part of my value system is above all, do no harm except to prevent a greater harm. Sometimes, and I've heard Catholic nuns say this, terminating a pregnancy can be the better, less bad of two options.
Yeah. What about suicide? Because the Stoic philosophers said that suicide was okay, it was good. What do you think? What do you think about suicide?
I've worked a lot with survivors of suicide and suicidal people. And even now, as part of my job as professional grandfather, I answer lots and lots of emailed cries for help. And most of those people, when they contact me, are suicidal. Suicide is always wrong because for two reasons. One is it's such a big karmic debt that when you die and you choose your next life, you just have to pay restitution for it. And the only possible restitution is to face the same problems again. The Dalai Lama tells a story about an old monk who came to him and said, I would like to learn this particular discipline. And the Dalai Lama said, sorry, you have to start your training at 7 years of age. So the Dalai Lama's greatest regret in his life, he said, was this man then went and killed himself in order to come back and learn it in the next life. But the Dalai Lama explained, and I agree, the only possible next life this man will choose will be to face the same choice again. So if you feel terrible guilt and kill yourself, or if you can't stand your life and kill yourself, whatever the reason, or no reason at all, you are guaranteed to choose to return to the same hell. So that's my view on suicide. And the second one is, it's the only way to solve a problem is to solve it. Running away has never solved the problem, and suicide is a way of running away.
My friend Matt is here, Nugloff. He's asking, are you any relation to Seth Rich? Probably not. Seth Rich was the victim of a homicide in the mid-2010s, politically motivated, I believe, he says. So no relation to Seth Rich.
The only people called Rich I'm related to is my wife, and that's the only relationship by marriage, and my children.
Is it on your birth certificate?
I was born with the name Reich, R-E-I-C-H.
Oh.
You see, the Habsburg King Franz Joseph decided that all subjects within his empire would have good Christian names.
Okay.
And so he established commissions to go around the Habsburg Empire, and they assigned good Christian names to Muslims, Gypsies, and Jews who didn't have those. And what these commissions were really expert at was assessing how much of a bribe you could pay. And if you were able to pay a good appropriate bribe,
Yeah.
then you got a name like Goldberg,
Oh.
which means Gold Mountain,
Is that supposed to be
or Stern, which means star.
Ah.
And if you didn't pay as much as they wanted, you got a name like Einstein,
Okay.
which means one testicle, or Eisenstein, which means donkey's balls, or in Hungarian Vízhányó, which means water vomiter. Right? Well, so my ancestor on the father's side, who was from Moravia, was named Reich, which means rich or wealthy. No, he was either had lots of money and paid the right bribe, or I like to think that he was so poor it was ridiculous and funny to call him rich. I prefer that one. I have no knowledge. Anyway, when I came to Australia, everybody mispronounced my name. It was pronounced in a dozen different ways. Someone asked to introduce myself. I gave my name as Mumble. And the second one was this joke. Are you the Third Reich or the Fourth Reich? And I was good at fighting, but after a while I got sick of punching people up for it. Or just, lifting them off the ground. And so when I was 17 and I could naturalise as Australian, it was my opportunity to change my name, so I dropped out one letter. So the answer is no.
I notice your accent is a little bit different. Is that because of your ethnic background, or is it because of the region where you live in Australia?
Well, no. What happens is, if you move to a new language, you speak like the locals.
Okay.
If you were before puberty, and you retain an accent if you're after puberty.
Okay.
And let me tell you, when I came to Australia, I was very interested in the swellings and ladies' dresses and such like. It was well after puberty.
Can people tell? Can people tell that you have an accent? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, a new teacher came to our school, and again, this is a story I tell in here, called Mr. Woods, and Mr. Woods was absolutely brilliant as a teacher. One of the things he did was to start a debating club, and he entered us in the inter-school competition. And I said, "Sir, I talk with an accent, I can't do it." And he said, "You talk with an accent and you can do it." And I became the whip. And in debating, the whip is the last speaker who doesn't present new information, but responds to the previous three speakers of the opposition. And I was brilliant.
If you don't say so yourself.
I managed to make fun of them, or fun of all their points. I got the audience roaring with laughter without getting personal. Right? So it was not argument ad hominem. I didn't make fun of them, but I made their argument sound ridiculous. And so he was right. And we actually came into the final of all the schools in Sydney. And the opposition was this exclusive girls' school. And when we were just arrived, this absolutely gorgeous blonde came up to me. Huge eyes. I couldn't take my eyes off her lips. Beautiful. And she said, I sat in on your semi-final and you were great. Look, here's my phone number. Afterwards, give me a call. So, of course, my head was full of pink clouds. I couldn't do it right. And so didn't do my job all very well.
Oh.
And we came second.
Oh, sabotage. Sabotage.
She nobbled me.
Sabotage. Oldest trick in the book. It's the oldest trick in the book.
So anyway, as you can see, I'm a grumpy old man with no sense of humor.
Yeah.
I prove that other people have a sense of humor because I get them to laugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I would like you to do is to send people along to my blog, which is bobbing around. Have you got the link to that?
Yeah, I got bobrich18 at wordpress.com, and I got bobrich, that's the only one I have, bobrich18.
Well, that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've got lots of free short stories there.
Okay.
And anyone who decides to follow my blog gets a free book.
Oh, nice.
At the moment, it's one of my historical fiction stories.
Okay. Nice.
We don't really have time for me to say too much about it. But also, anybody who buys any of my books and sends me proof of purchase and a review of the book is a perfect proof, gets a second electronic book for free.
Nice.
Okay.
Wow. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure meeting you. It's been a wild ride listening to your story. Yeah. And I'm sure you have more stories because you're full of you're full of stories.
No,
you're full of stories.
I've even got 100-word stories.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
100-word stories?
Yeah.
What does that mean? It's like you've made exactly
the entire story is 100 words.
Oh, okay. You crafted it like that. Oh.
And I've got 200-word stories, and then I've got 104,000 word stories.
Wow.
104,000 word stories.
Wow.
And everything in between.
So it's a pleasure meeting you.
Writing is the chocolate icing on the cake of life. That's another one of my cliches.
I just want to ask you, because we met on Podmatch, I just want to ask you, did you meet a lot of people? Have you gone on other podcasts? And
I have.
What's the reception been like? Like how diverse are the podcasts that you've been on?
Very. Look, at my blog, at the welcome page, I've got links at the top. One of them is entertaining you mostly elsewhere, and you'll be the top listing on that. Okay. Because I list them in chronological order.
Okay.
But they're all there. Wherever I've been interviewed or been a guest on a podcast, it goes there.
Okay.
And sometimes if it's not available or it's gone offline or something, then I reproduce it.
Okay.
At my blog. So I have a fairly full record.
Wow. That's a good time capsule for your progeny. Do you have what's the idea with your children, grandchildren? What's happening there?
Oh well, my eldest daughter is an advanced spirit. She chose to be child-free, which is very sensible, in today's world. But she's everybody's aunt. Okay. Every child's aunt.
She's in Australia.
Yeah.
Your kids are all in Australia.
My son lives in Queensland.
Okay.
And he's an expert on a form of healing called orthobionomy.
Okay.
And he teaches how to do it, and he's written a very good book on it called Exploring Your Intelligent Body, which is basically a self-help book for dealing with aches and pains, and also applies it to emotional aches and pains. And my daughter is a professor of neuroscience at a university in Sydney.
Oh, wow. No grandkids yet?
Oh yeah, I've got 4 biological grandkids.
Okay.
I've got great grandkids, and I've got absolutely hundreds and hundreds of grandkids all over the planet.
Right. Right.
These are people who contacted me with a cry for help,
Yeah.
and then stayed on.
Oh, okay.
Just yesterday, I had a friendly email from a young man in somewhere in the United States who wanted to know how I was.
Oh, nice.
He came to me suicidal, and now he's just basically he's teaching my tools to other people who are suffering.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for
So
your
he's a true
service.
grandson of my spirit.
Yeah, well, thank you for the work that you're doing, caring for your fellow humans. It's very important. And thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And
It's my honor and privilege.
and very nice to meet you.
And do send me the link, and I'll publicize it.
Yes, of course. Yes, I'll send you that link right away. And I'll be praying for you and yours. That's just something I do for all my guests. And so you can send me positive vibrations or whatever it is you do in your tradition.
I won't say who it is, but pray for the person in my life who has cancer.
Yeah.
That's the person who needs prayer. I'm okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Take good care. And if I don't talk to you between now and the holidays, have a good Christmas and New Year's, and probably we'll talk again in 2024. Okay? God bless you. We'll talk soon. Bye.